And so just take a minute and recenter yourself. And so thinking that right now I'm on a path of altruism, of increasing empathy, perhaps of bodhicitta. And because of that, I want to filter everything in my experience through the lens of altruism, whether it's positive, whether it's negative. And so reconnect with bodhicitta. And shift your focus to the breath. And so now we shift to analysis, a very gentle exploration, using the 8 worldly concerns that we already have heard about. Now we look at them from the perspective of karma. And so we start with the pair, praise and blame or criticism. And just sit with, when have you been praised or validated or spoken well to in a way that it was a condition for happiness? A time when you felt seen or acknowledged, supported, respected. And just try and remember a positive experience of praise. And taking what you understand about karma, you know that this praise was a condition, not a substantial cause for giving you the pleasure of having been praised. If it were the substantial cause, then every time you were praised, you would feel pleasure and happiness. But sometimes when you're praised, you question the motivation of the praiser. Sometimes you feel ashamed or like a hypocrite. Sometimes you're even more happy, even excited to be acknowledged. Some days praise doesn't really matter. It's just one more piece of a conversation with no particular effect on you. And so if praise was the substantial cause for pleasure, it would always work. But coming back to that one time when it did work, when being praised and validated was a condition for happiness, think to yourself, this is the ripening result of my own positive karma. The reason I was happy was because of my previous positive actions, meeting with the condition of this person's voice and their words. How nice it was to experience happiness. And so you don't think that you have been rewarded. You don't think you've been given some blessing. You just think, isn't it nice that there was a condition for happiness that ripened my own causes? And then you expand it and think, may I be a condition for other people to have their positive karma ripen as happiness. So may I praise in a way that is beneficial. May I validate and support others without any hidden agenda, without any expectations, just because it's positive to do so and might be a condition for their happiness. Try to bring a Dharma understanding to praise. And then look at being blamed or being criticized from the perspective of karma. Try to think of a time when someone else's critical words really triggered an uncomfortable feeling. When you really suffered because of what someone said. Try to find a story in your life where you really believed that was true and why. Certain that your suffering came from their words. Look through your past. And as you think about this painful situation, of course you offer yourself compassion and offer compassion to this other person who was so critical. But make sure you first think, this is actually karma ripening. The fact that I was criticized and the way in which I experienced that criticism as negative, the fact that I had a feeling of suffering, all of that is karma ripening. The words did not give me pain. They were a condition, not a cause. If they were a cause, any time that someone criticized you, it would be painful. It would go straight to your heart. You would suffer. But there are times when you hear criticism differently, when your mind is protected by positive states of mind, or when you haven't created the cause with that person. And so their words land, but they don't take hold. Sometimes you hear criticism and you laugh, seeing your own absurdity or seeing the absurdity of the criticizer. Sometimes you're criticized and you think of it as constructive and useful, and you're happy to have things clarified. Sometimes you hear criticism and immediately can see the suffering of the other person. You immediately see that that criticism is coming from a suffering person. And so if criticism were the substantial cause for your suffering, like it was in that vivid memory, then it would always be so. But those words are just one of countless conditions. And the main thing was the substantial cause within your own mind. Something in the past was planted on your mental continuum. Maybe you were harsh or critical. And then it met with this person's words, and it watered the seed. And so then expand and think, when I am about to criticize, I remember that it can be, and often is, a condition for someone else to suffer. But even if it isn't, if my criticism is coming from a negative motivation, I'm planting seeds to experience the same in the future. So saying these critical words may be a condition for harm in the immediate to this person, but will definitely be a condition and a cause for my own suffering in future. And you expand even further and think, why do I criticize? Am I trying to help and clarify and support and heal things? Or am I just venting my frustration? Am I punishing people with words? They may have the substantial cause to suffer from my words in their continuum. Do I really want to water their seeds? And then we look at the next pair of the 8 worldly concerns, gain and loss. And so first think about gain or acquisition, abundance, having, prosperity, resources. And think about when your relationship to objects and your relationship to having has been a condition for joy. something beautiful in your house, in your closet, in your garden, a treasured friendship, a valued position at work. Think of when you have felt joy in response to having. And this having of objects or situations, this having is the result of having practiced generosity in the future, ethics, different positive attitudes and actions. This is what I gave myself, the legacy I left myself in the past. And it never was the objects themselves that made me happy, but they were conditions, and it was nice to be happy. So the fact of having and my positive response to having, my feelings of pleasure and enjoyment because of what I have, this is all karma ripening. But the objects themselves were never the thing that gave me this experience. Just conditions. Think about again, if they were the substantial cause, they would give you continuous happiness. They would always give you happiness every time you saw them. Maybe you planned and saved and organized and researched and finally got the car that you always wanted. And it was a condition for happiness. And you enjoyed getting to know how it worked. You enjoyed the new car smell, the comfort of new seats, being able to take your friends here and there comfortably, enjoying how safe your family was in it. And then time went by. Are you as happy to see it every single time? Every time you get in the car, does it give you the same joy? Maybe that joy lasts quite a long time, but it's unlikely that it's every time, continuously. So you take any kind of example like that. Remember the rush and the exhilaration. Finally, I have it. Finally, I have them. Finally, I have this. But if that condition was actually a cause, it would always work, and it doesn't. And so just allow your mind to break the spell, to pierce through the illusion, that way of thinking that disempowers yourself and creates a false need that thinks I can only be happy if I have that, this, or them. Use your logic to break the spell. And so the karma that you created is why you have what you have and why you respond to it the way that you do. And the fact that that is pleasant in terms of acquisition of various things shows the generosity pattern within your mind stream. But if you respond to what you acquire with attachment, then you just run out of all your good generosity karma. You burn through it like spending all the savings in your bank, not creating any new. And so think, whenever I encounter objects, positions, situations, or people, when I acquire them and I'm happy, may I just enjoy being happy without giving these things the credit, without building a story of expectations and attachment on top of it. May I just enjoy being happy, seeing it as the ripening result of positive karma, wanting to share and use that happiness. And expanding it further, may I be a condition to ripen the seeds of positive karma in others by giving them what they need when they need it, without any expectations or pressure or hope for success. Just because giving is good. It, of course, also creates the cause for my own resources in the future. But it could be an immediate condition for their happiness, if they've created the cause for it. And then looking at the other side from a karmic perspective, examining loss. Loss of possessions, loss of people, loss of position. Allow yourself to touch the grief of loss and losing. Choose an example that won't suck you under. Choose something of medium suffering. When you thought, I really didn't want that to happen. I'm really suffering because I lost that, or them, or this. And then looking at that loss from the karmic perspective, think, this is the result of actions I've done. I may have deprived others of possessions, position, or people through physical actions, through verbal actions. I may have indulged covetousness and malice, these attached and angry thoughts in my head. There are so many reasons why I'm experiencing this. It is not a punishment. It is just natural consequence of actions I've done. Loss is built into the nature of samsara. And samsara is my own body and mind, created by and under the power of karma and disturbing emotions. That is samsara. And samsara involves loss. And so whatever it is that I've lost is not my fault, but it is my responsibility, particularly my response to it. Maybe I inherited the situation from my past self. Maybe my past self was worse behaved than I am now. But if I don't want more of the same, may my response be skillful. First, thinking this negative karma ripening also means that it's finishing. This particular seed has sprouted, grown, and I can allow it to die a natural death, meaning I won't experience that same exact type again. However, it's possible I've created many causes that are similar to this seed, because the mind is a habitual creature. It does the same thing often. And so may I also change my response. If in the past, loss has led me to depression and despair, or to anger and volatility, or to a fake plastic happiness, suppressing what is really felt, this time may I respond differently. And let the pain break open my heart so that it's softened towards sentient beings. This loss is the very thing I needed to open my heart further. I didn't want it, but it's useful. And then also remembering that loss isn't the cause of suffering in and of itself. It is a mere condition. Even your experience of a specific loss of some possession or position or person, you change how you feel about it day to day, even hour to hour. It may often be a condition for suffering, but even that suffering has different shades and variations and varieties. If the loss gave you a feeling directly, then it would only give you that particular feeling. Always exactly like that, identically, every time. If you think of loss of some beloved but distant relative, some days it's grief to remember them. Some days it's joy to remember them. Sometimes we think we must look like we're suffering when we lose something, so that others know we valued it. I have to be angry that I lost my job. I have to be depressed that I lost my person. I have to be agitated that I lost this possession. We think we have to, so that others will know it's something we valued. We could just tell them, this is something I valued. I could use some support. We could just feel what we're feeling moment to moment without trying to manufacture or change it. If it's grief, that is useful for opening the heart. If it's joy, that is useful for opening the heart. Other variations are important information into the human condition. Everything is fuel for practice. And so expanding, thinking of others, when they experience loss and suffer because of it, the loss is not the cause for their suffering substantially, but they may believe that it is. And it is not our job to challenge that, unless they want to be challenged. Our job is to look at how we can be a powerful condition to help them navigate their loss, to help them not create further causes for loss. And just sit with how that's resonating. The first 4 of the 8 worldly concerns from a karmic perspective: praise and criticism, gain and loss. Coming back to your immediate life, what's a way to bring in your understanding of karma, to deepen your empathy, to strengthen your ethics? And this hardship, can you experiment with the thought, this is the wheel of sharp weapons returning. From now on, I'll stop creating the causes for this hardship. And in the present, I will use this hardship to increase my altruism. And so staying in your meditation position, allow yourself to stretch. If you need a sip of water, open your eyes and look at the light, just for 3 minutes, refreshing ourselves before continuing with the second half. If you had any immediate impressions from the first half of the meditation, you can write them down. Wrapping up your thought. Final stretch, sip of water, and coming back. Okay. Okay, back to Bodhichitta. All elements, all aspects of karma, may we view them with Bodhichitta. And also, if we view them with Bodhichitta, then we ourselves suffer less. We see them as not problems, but opportunities, or perhaps problems that are opportunities. Coming back to the idea of karma being experienced, this is our responsibility, but it's not our fault. It's not our right. It's not a blessing or a reward. It's not punishment or retribution. Just simply consequence. Simply effect. Simply result of what was caused in the past. Knowing this, may I be more skillful in the present, creating a better future for myself and all sentient beings. And then continuing on with the 8 worldly concerns, we look at the next pair, which is related to reputation. Looking at how, with a positive reputation, we think we need it in order to have happiness. When there is a negative reputation, we think that it's impossible to be happy. We're in a frenzy trying to correct how people see us. So just take a minute and think about the role reputation plays in your life. What you hope people think about you when you're not there. What you hope your community thinks about you and your family thinks about you. Really think about what you wish your reputation is. And then ask yourself, why do I think that's necessary for my happiness? Maybe a good reputation is useful for doing positive work, maybe. But why do I think reputation is necessary for my happiness? Why do I care what people think about me? And try not to edit yourself. Things that are maybe wise, skillful, understanding, as well as those that are petty and superficial, full of vanity. Try to think of all of the reasons you have for hoping to have a good reputation. There are logical reasons and illogical reasons. Don't edit out any of your illogical reasons, or use your logical reasons to shore up and justify the reasons you know to be petty. Of course, it's true that we are social animals, and that being connected to each other is a great support and help. Of course, it's true that being ostracized or excluded and isolated is a very difficult condition to navigate. Of course. And is our need for reputation really based in wisdom like that? Or is our need for reputation more superficial and petty? Or is it a mixture? Just use a very clear and direct self-awareness to check. And so just holding that self-awareness. Now shifting to look at the karmic perspective. We may think that we have a good reputation or a moderately good reputation because we are good. Because we are good people who do good things. We might think that all of the reasons for our good reputation are actions of this life. That we have a right to it. That we deserve it. Based purely on the actions of this life. So take a little step back from that idea and think, are there other people in the world, in society, who are as good as me? Similar, same. Just as kind, not looking at those kinder. Just as patient, not even thinking about those who are more patient. People who live very similar to me, who have a different kind of reputation in society. There are people who are almost identical to me in terms of their inner motivations, and yet there is a huge variation in how good their reputation is, how famous they are, how respected, how well known. Some very ordinary people like us are incredibly famous and powerful. Some ordinary people like us are destitute and downtrodden and oppressed. There are ordinary people like us with good hearts who try their best, who made some mistakes, just like we have. But for them, their mistakes were exposed and publicized, and they were humiliated and lost their status. For others, similar mistakes were revealed, and people didn't mind. They were forgiven. Things moved on. And so just shake off the idea internally that a good reputation comes from doing all the right things. If doing all the right things was the cause substantially for good reputation, then everyone who did all the right things would have a good reputation. And they don't. Some more, some less. One of the substantial causes of a good reputation is having supported and celebrated and benefited others without jealousy or competitiveness, rejoicing in their actions. Speaking well about people behind their backs and thinking well of people, even when they're not there to hear you, even when there's no obvious relationship there. Turning your mind towards the positive when people come into your mind. These are causes for a good reputation. All the other things you say and do in this life are merely conditions. And so on one level, we can then let go and think, I'll do the best that I can, the best ethics, the best communication, the most open heart that I'm able to do at my level, but without any pressure or expectation that I'll get some kind of respect for it, that I'll be uplifted because of it, famous because of it, well thought of in my family or in my community because of it. I might be. I might not. They're just conditions. And expanding, why do I even care about reputation? Why do I think it's necessary for my happiness? If people don't know me, don't know about me, if I don't have any kind of reputation, or even a bad reputation, there can be huge benefits. More space, more time. We can see which friends are genuine, who are there for us, regardless of our status. Even if having a low reputation is suffering, it can be useful because your mind is compassionate towards others in the same state. And expanding, how would I want people to think of me is probably the way other people would want me to think of them. Other people would probably prefer that I forgive them for their bad days, that I forgive them for being distracted and afflicted. Probably others would prefer that I looked for the best in them. If that's how I want people to think of me, maybe that's how I should think of them. Rejoicing in their qualities, forgiving their deficits, remembering dependent arising, keeping compassion. And then the actual first pair of the 8 worldly concerns, pleasure and pain. Now we'll do it last. Because hoping for pleasure and fearing pain pervades so much of our daily life. And so just look at the way in which so many of our karmic actions, so many of them come from a place of trying to avoid some discomfort and trying to get some comfort within our physical sphere and within our mental environment. Just taking a really honest assessment of the background drives. Once I do this, then I get to have this snack or this rest or listen to this music or change positions or talk to this person or stimulate myself by reading this or looking at that. There may be the work that we think is very significant and important in our life, but it actually isn't getting as much attention as trying to get pleasure and avoid pain. So we might be very present with someone for a few seconds, a few minutes, and then become preoccupied. I need to change the way I'm sitting in this chair. I need to get to the bathroom. I need to drink something. This isn't quite interesting enough. I need to think about something else at the same time. Or this is too interesting. I wish they would slow down. So much preoccupies us related to seeking pleasure, avoiding pain. So as you look at yourself, just try and gauge what percentage of the day in each of the different chapters of the day is about this worldly concern. When you wake up, and then continuing on through the different activities of a normal day, how often are you preoccupied with stimulating your senses and avoiding discomfort with them? I think what I'm actually doing is fiddling with and manipulating conditions. And it's only human and only natural that I do so. It's been my habit forever. However, when my mind is content, I become less obsessed with pleasure and pain. When my mind is happy, I don't need to stimulate myself mentally. I don't need to keep adjusting myself physically. Even if there's mild discomfort, it doesn't bother me. Dissatisfaction, having too much or not enough, is part of the aspects of a samsaric body and mind. Every moment has the potential to feel like it's just too much, overwhelming, or not enough, deficient. In any moment, we can decide that's the case, and then try to address it by feeding the senses. That's what we normally do. And then we create more karma, which creates more craving and more habits to do the same. And so expand out and decide to take the power back from your senses and to take the power back from the objects of your senses. Say, it's only normal and natural that I become obsessed with the objects of the senses, tastes, sounds, smells, etc. However, my mental experience is key. May I gently but directly shift my emphasis. Less time and attention obsessed with pleasure and pain. More time and attention cultivating positive states of mind that are beneficial, altruistic. More emphasis to decreasing negative states of mind that are destructive and harmful. And if I give more emphasis to the mind, very naturally my feelings will be more comfortable anyway. My discomfort will be less anyway. And what's more, I'm better able to benefit others. And so think, by looking at the karmic relationship to my 8 worldly concerns and these everyday experiences of hope and fear, attachment and aversion. By looking into them deeply, may I interrupt the negative habits and transform my mind. May I use this knowledge of karma to empower myself to be of benefit to others. And in so doing, I will finally find that contentment I've been seeking. It will come as a natural byproduct or side effect of working for the welfare of others. Okay.